medical marijuana in Washington state, 5 different cannabis faiths, vaporizer wisdom, and more on this week's Cannabis Digest video review. Holy smoke! 5 faiths that praise the pot plant. This is our first article of the week with Callie Walton from Medicine Hat, Alberta. And in this article, she has outlined 5 religions which have used or praised the cannabis plant. The Rastafari, Hinduism, Germanic paganism, that is Norse mythology, Taoism, and many modern sects. In fact, in the comments to the article, it was made clear to us that there are in fact new modern sects that I hadn't heard of, Canna-Gnostics being one of them, that praised the cannabis plant. So it's still such a very popular thing to do since ancient times. And this is a quote from Callie's article. To some, religion can be a tender subject, and why wouldn't it be? Faith is something held so very close to the heart of so many people. Imagine if the government were to make communion wine illegal, or start shoving people in jail for meditating. Think about that. So, Callie, another thought-provoking entry to the Cannabis Digest. On to Ted Smith's textbook video for the week, that is Ancient North American Hempsters. And Ted asked the question, did Native Americans grow cannabis? And he says, yes, they did. And he gives some evidence from Hopewell Mounds, where there was some hemp cloth that was reported to be found used in the burial sites. And there's also some other evidence that he outlines in his video, which I encourage you to watch. They're just short videos. And in the comments for this section, Dana Larson responded by saying that, in fact, no, he doesn't think that they did have any cannabis in North America before the Europeans, and that the references that were used for the mounds, the burial mounds, were actually referring to other fibrous crops that, as they often shared the name hemp, whether it was flax, manila, or jute, or any of the useful crops that they had back then. And it's basically a misnomer. And so that is a debate that's ongoing. If you have any comments or questions on that, put them in below. The next on the list is Saga, the Saga of Medical Marijuana in Washington State, from Judith Stamps. And in this article, Judith outlines the history of marijuana in Washington State, from the earlier marijuana for medical purposes laws to the onset of the recreational laws. And what she says is that the recreational laws have actually made things a bit harder for the medical marijuana patients down there. One of the things is the tax. The money for taxes in Washington State has driven the price up to $20 to $25 a gram. So it's very expensive, and that's beyond the reach of some medical patients who need quite a lot of it. So lots of questions coming up in some of the earlier experiments for marijuana regulations, this time in Washington State. And Judith always supplies some of her hand-drawn cartoons to go along with it, so worth taking a check out on that. On to the next one. The Myth of the Marijuana Millionaire. This is written by Dean Schwind. Dean worked at the same club that I worked at in Victoria, BC, and he's also worked for a couple of decades in hydroponic stores on Vancouver Island. And one thing Dean learned is that you're not necessarily going to get rich by growing cannabis. In fact, his experience was that oftentimes that people would buy expensive grow equipment, thousands of dollars, only to be turning it back over to Craigslist or Kijiji a few months later, because they have figured out it's much harder than they thought. It takes a lot of skill and specific expertise to be able to cultivate quality indoor cannabis. So if you take a lesson from Dean there, the myth of the marijuana millionaire. Ted comes with the Cannabis Digest update that it's bigger than better than ever. In fact, the Cannabis Digest fall newspaper will be coming out next week, and there'll be 4 added pages. And I just finished doing it, just finished putting it together. It's got great cover art by Georgia Tunes and some great articles in there that I really think that you will enjoy reading. And Ted's article also has some analytics, some stats from the website, so you can see how the website is doing, how we've grown gradually over the last few months since the daily blog began in June. He's also plugs, there's Mark and Jody, he also plugs the advertisers as well, because we're looking for advertisers on our website as well as in the newspaper. So get in contact with us at cannabisdigest.ca and find out how you can help us educate everybody about this. On to the next one. This is my article for the week, how to make the most of a vaporizer. And in this article I offer some charts, and one which is used as a sticker attachment to the Volcano Vaporizer, so you can know exactly what cannabinoids are being vaporized at what temperature you have the dial at. Here is the dial, as you see on the lower end, the acid compounds, and then you have THC and CBD, and then you have a few more cannabinoids before you get to benzene, which is a toxic byproduct. If you get too hot, around 400 Fahrenheit, you start to get some toxic byproducts. You want to be able to avoid that, and this information will help you to do that. This chart here shows you all of the cannabinoids, and Ron is the guy who's done it, Ron Van Zetta from the Victoria Cannabis Buyers Club. He's put a lot of time and effort into these charts, so a lot of thanks go out to Ron. And one more article for the week, and that's another one from me, and this one is The Illusion of Dried Marijuana. And this brings us back to the BC Supreme Court, where in my trial we made it clear to the judge that in fact dried marijuana is an arbitrary term, and he agreed, actually striking the term from the law altogether. Now, the detail that makes dried marijuana an illusion is the very simple fact that the resin contains all the medicine, and the dried marijuana, which is permitted by Health Canada, should in fact include the resin and everything that's in the resin. And limiting it to dried marijuana is actually limiting people to unnecessary, unmedicinal compounds that may even contain pesticides, fertilizers, residual heavy metals from the soil, and things like that. Things people really don't want, especially if they have a medical condition. So that point we made to the judge, and we'll be taking to the Supreme Court of Canada sometime next year. And I'll keep updating you on the Cannabis Digest video blogs once a week, all the way up to the Supreme Court, and keeping you informed and helping educate Canadians and people around the world every day on the Cannabis Digest daily blogs. cannabisdigest.ca. My name's Owen Smith, and thanks for watching. I hope you have a nice time this week. Goodbye.